Hey everybody, welcome back to the You Are Completely Loved podcast. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Katie.
And we are stoked to be with you today.
Yes, we are in like the ultimate setup right now.
Honestly, this is where it's at.
We're in Hannah's childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
Which is her current bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we have one little camera in the middle.
Yep. Insta 360. Let's go.
And here we are.
Just trying to get some content out there, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I get it. And Hannah and I just survived a really big holiday season at our respective churches because, as we've shared previously, we both work at a church full time, which is a huge blessing and a huge calling in itself. And so on today's episode, we wanted to talk about what do we do when the church is life, when church is every aspect of your life, which is, I think is just so real for where Hannah and I are just in our season of life. And even right now, as we're sitting here, I'm like, wow, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
But it's so worth it. So without any further ado, let's get into our roundtable discussion on church is life.
Church is life.
Okay, so welcome to our roundtable discussion, which is really just around the camera. We're not even at a table today.
And that's what we call a 360 moment.
That's what we call a 360 moment. So Hannah, for you, I know we've talked about this before, but did you envision that at this stage in your life that you would be as involved at church as you are now?
No. Like, if you, how old of a Hannah are you asking if she envisioned this?
Well, you know, like when you're younger and you're like in high school and you're trying to figure out what I'm going to study in college. What do you think? What career path am I considering? And you and I both grew up in church, but I don't think we ever thought the church would be a career.
Sure. Yeah.
And now that it has become a career, that you've been in it as long as you've had.
Yeah.
So what kind of has surprised you about that?
Well, I thought I would be married with a child by 25. And
there's still time.
I'm pushing 34 and that's just it could still happen. Yeah.
I definitely just kicked the camera.
It's okay. It's going to be fine. I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so college was hard to study in general. It was hard to figure out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. Because I think there was a part of my life where I was like, I'm never going to be in ministry. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And now I pretty much live in it.
Yeah, it's true.
But, so no, I didn't envision this for myself. And I also didn't envision it leaving camp ministry. Because I think leaving camp ministry, I was like, I don't know if I want to go into ministry itself based on what I've seen and having doing that so intensely for 3 years. So no, I don't think I envisioned myself here. I'm not sure how I got here, and I'm very thankful that I am here, though I do really enjoy what I do.
For me, after I left my second summer at Christian Summer Camp, I went straight into working at a local church, essentially full time.
Right. In Georgia,
Yeah. And I don't mess around, I guess, because when I decided to do that and I decided that was something God had for me, just, you know, based on my own discernment of what he was telling me and my own sense of where things were headed, I went all the way across the country to do that. So I ended up in Georgia for 2 years interning at this awesome local church plant. Did the mobile church lifestyle where we had to set up and tear down for every single thing. Sunday mornings, youth. We had 2 different, junior high and high school services midweek. So we'd set it all up on Wednesday, tear it all down, set it all back up on Thursday.
Yeah.
And I did that for 2 years and lived in the storage unit and found all the random kickballs that the church didn't even know we had.
We've spent $600 on kickballs over the years. We don't know where they are.
Setting up stuff. So that was really cool because I learned how to be scrappy in church, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I learned a ton just from trial and error, figuring things out as I went. And I think in that season, what was challenging for me and why I even thought of, when church is your life, is that was all I had because I was in Georgia and I didn't know anybody in the state at all. And I was at this smaller church plant, so pretty much everybody I knew was at the church.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting time where it's like, what does community look like in this season? Because a lot of the people that were in the church were either married with kids, or they were off at college, or they had moved away that were in my age bracket. So trying to figure out what it looked like to nurture those healthy relationships. But something that really came out of that too is I really grew a lot in my faith. Because when you don't have anyone and Jesus is all you have, you really get close to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I had lots of free time, just being an intern and being there and not doing school or anything like that. So I would spend blocks of time just reading scripture and just spending time with the Lord. So I'm really grateful for that time in my life, because then I went from that season of ministry to the hardest season of ministry I've ever had, which was being in even greater position of leadership at a church in Central California. And what was hard about that is I did have the community, but the ministry itself was so challenging. It was just a constant uphill battle to move the needle, to carry the ball forward in the mission that I felt like God had given me. But for you, like, how did you kind of get started? Like, what did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I left camp. And I kind of swore off ministry in a working sense. You know, I didn't want to work and do that. But then I got like a call about a month after I left that was, hey, there's a position at the front desk. It's super part-time. Would you be interested? And I was like, that's not ministry. I could totally do that. Which 100% it's ministry.
All the church ladies just turned us off right there.
Yeah. Shout out to all the women that work at the front desk, or men, depending on where you are.
Yeah, but man, what a journey.
You guys are the gatekeepers and the people that...
Literal and figurative.
Yeah, you make churches run. So shout out to you guys. Yes. What you do goes unseen and unthanked. So thank you. So I jumped into that, and in that position, I did a lot more design stuff, which was what I got. I got a degree in art. So it's kind of design, kind of not really. And from there, it ended up becoming they wanted to hire that position full time. And I was like, I don't want to do this full time. So I kind of took a step back and then just sort of became the like contracted graphic designer for a time, which was good. It was a really good season of resting for me coming off the camp life. And then I kind of jumped back into student ministries in the sense of I wanted to be a leader for leaders. I wanted to be a resource for people who were leading, usually from a dry well, or they've given everything they've got, and I wanted to be a resource for them. And so I was doing that on Sundays and Wednesdays as it goes, and it pretty quickly became, I like preached at summer camp that year, and then the youth pastor left and another guy came in that was already working, and it turns out he and I grew up together. So we knew each other well. We worked with each other well. And so for about 6 months, I actually led a group and was doing all of our graphic design. And then in 2020, they were like, hey, we have like a full-time position for you that we've created based on what you do, because you do so much. Yeah. My motto is always like, just keep showing up and eventually they'll pay you. And it worked out for me.
It did.
And so that's just sort of how I kind of stumbled into that position. And then 4 years later, here I am. My job has changed drastically because 2 weeks after I started full-time, COVID hit. And I was like, a self-taught video production, all of whatever. Shout out to my friends who have helped me. All the nerds deserve some shout out.
Oh, definitely.
And so that's kind of how I've been here and how I landed in ministry, and it's long-winded, but that's kind of how I ended up in full-time ministry.
Yeah.
So.
And my current church that I work at, I think what was cool for me is I did more of the front-facing ministry like you with students, but also have that background in journalism and writing. So you're kind of similar, and we both have this creative background. I think that's what's so cool for us both now is that we're in a place where we're doing full-time ministry, but we're also doing our passion and creativity and using those gifts at the same time, which is so exciting. And I think that allows you to have such a well-rounded experience of working in the church because we're operating in our wheelhouse in a sense.
Yeah.
And are still able to do like a lot of things we love with like front-facing ministry with people, but also being able to use our gifts to build up God's kingdom.
Absolutely.
Which I think is so awesome.
Yeah.
But there's some challenges with that too. Because I think we're both people that are sign up and want to be really involved in a lot of different things and say yes to a lot of different things. And they're good things.
Yeah.
But man, how do you balance getting this spiritual community, but also working for that spiritual community at the same time and having that healthy, even balance and margin in the midst of that?
I think this is the thing that I have continually had to learn.
Yeah.
Right. Because I work so behind the scenes now and because I am so far removed from attending church, I don't actually attend church. And that is really hard because, you know, I'm the person behind the camera, calling the shots, doing all of that. I'm the person putting out fires on Sundays. If you don't see me, it's because I'm doing my job. You know, like I'm doing a good job if you don't see me. And if nothing goes wrong, you don't know I exist.
She emerges.
Right. If something goes wrong, you're like, oh, that person exists on your staff. But if nothing goes wrong, you don't even know. And that's like the goal of my job. But because of that, I miss out on attending church, and that's really hard.
Yeah.
And so Christine and I actually, for a while, we're going to a different church to try and just be fed.
Yeah.
But it's hard because the goal of the church is to just like, you want to be invested in community and you need to be poured into by people and you want to serve your church. And when I was going, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be seen by anybody. I just want to like slide into the back, sit in the dark spot, receive, and then leave. And that's not the goal of church.
Yeah, not a consumer.
So for me, it's really hard. I'm also not necessarily an audio learner. So I've tried podcasts so many times, but it like gets to the end of the sermon. You're like, I don't remember a single thing. So long story short, this is actually really hard for me. This is something I have to proactively be good at, and I'm not good at proactively doing it. It's hard because you sit down to read scripture and you're like, oh my gosh, this would be a great sermon for students. And then you're like, jump into that space. You're like, no, I need to make sure I am investing in the scripture for my own spiritual growth at this moment in time.
And for its own sake.
Yes. And like, I need that time to be dedicated to that. And that's really hard to find in my job. And so that's something that I constantly have to walk through and learn. And it's hard to not, in church as in life, it's hard to not get caught up in all of the politics of working at a church or the politics of your job or politics of ministry in general. And so for me, the step I'm at in my current life is I have to separate my job from my spiritual life. And that's really hard when your job is spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God didn't give us his word so that we could get a sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's not the point of it. Like obviously he calls us to share his word with others, but ultimately God's word is for us.
Yeah.
It's for all of us as individuals.
So
it's such a hard thing sometimes because sometimes inspiration strikes and we get really excited.
Or you like go to attend church and you're like, okay, I made that graphic. And then you're just sitting in church. You're like, no, I misspelled that. Or, that spacing is off. Or,
yes. Oh my gosh.
I used to make the PowerPoints and I would just sit there like anxiety. Like, oh no, like, is it right? Is it okay? And you just sort of sit there and you're like, oh my gosh. And that's just part of the gig. And but that makes attending hard.
It does. And I think something that has allowed, because I've been at my current church for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing that has made this possible, because I 100% resonate with you, is you sit in the service, you see all the things that you made or put into it, and you're like, oh, that could have been better. Or, oh man, maybe next time I should do that. And you're just working. You're basically just there taking notes, which is, there's always stuff that we can learn, and it's important to take note of those things. But man, that's not the point. And so for me, I know this is not true for everyone. I know it's not true for you, but something that was super helpful for me early was I started going to one of the satellite campuses that had just launched. And it's a crazy different experience, especially when I first started going, because it launched out of the pandemic and we were meeting in a hotel. And the production value was like a boombox on the floor. Like a little bit better. I want to give my people credit, but it was very different experience. But for me, what was so awesome is I didn't feel like I was at work anymore. So I had, even though I still contributed aspects of that service, because we would share, graphics and videos and all that stuff, I would not think about what I was doing for work. I would be able to just receive and be at church. And what's been so awesome is being able to go on the ground floor of that over these past 5 years, and seeing us go from a hotel to a mall to a empty warehouse and a wall to eventually our permanent space, and actually having to be a part of that entire journey has been so good for my soul. And that's where I also serve. So I serve in the youth ministry there. That's separate from my job. I'm not paid for any of that. I have this incredible community with all the other youth leaders down there, and with the people I go to church with every Sunday. And so in that sense, even though it is still the same church that I work for, it feels like this completely separate thing. And so I've actually encouraged people that come on board in a role like mine, where you're not tied to having to come to a weekend service, or your hours aren't, during the services. Hey, try to check out one of the campuses, because I think that's honestly the reason I've been able to be there as long as I have.
That's totally fair.
But along with that is a little bit of a challenge as well, because our jobs demand a lot of us to be physically at church, to do a lot of things for church, but to add in those things that are so good for our own soul, and be able to serve and be in a life group and participate in the life of the church. All of a sudden, your entire week is church. Which I have felt more this year than ever. I was in a season in the winter where I was in my own life group on Mondays. On Wednesdays, I was leading a high school girls life group. And on Thursdays, I was leading, as a part of my job, a discipleship group where we were helping people newer to the church learn about Jesus and the Bible and what it means to be part of the church, which also had outside field trips attached to it. It's an incredible program. But I was doing all of that every single week on top of my regular job, where I'm working hours at a physical church. And that was so incredibly challenging, where I was just feeling really tired, but at the same time, I didn't want to let one thing go, because everything that I was doing was giving me life in a different way. But man, it's just tough. But I think for me, something that's been so important is it's easy to get into the treadmill mindset of spiritual growth, where I'm doing a lot of activity and I'm straining myself in a lot of ways, but I'm not actually getting anywhere. You know what I mean? Like the same results happening, like it's still breaking down my body to the same level. I'm still doing just amount of activity, but I'm not actually progressing. I'm just trying to stay afloat. Whereas that's not what the Christian life is all about. We're supposed to be moving forward. We're supposed to be going deeper. We're supposed to be going onward and upward. Like we're not supposed to stay in the same place that we are. So I think that's where it's easy to fall into the trap when you're super involved in church, to just be doing a lot of activity, but not actually going anywhere.
And I would say in the last 5 years, it's been the most spiritually stagnant I've ever been. Which is, it's a self-assessment, right? And that's sad, but it's also like the effort of trying to get out of that sounds so exhausting.
Well, and the reality is a lot of times we can't get ourselves out of that. We have to get knocked off the treadmill by the Spirit of God, or by something in our lives.
An entire shift.
Because we'll never get
No.
off on our own.
No.
Something has to happen.
Yeah, something has to give. And I think that's kind of where I've been a lot this year. Is something has to give. And what is it? What do I choose?
Yeah.
You know? And I've been fortunate. Stepping out of students in this last year has been really good for me because I was at church late Wednesdays, especially during COVID. Like it was like we were recording late Tuesdays, then
Yeah.
Wednesdays we had students,
Yeah,
and then
yep.
Thursdays I did this. So it was like I would have 3 12-hour days in a row, and it's like I can't sustain.
No.
But like I have one of the best things I did was join a life group
Yeah.
because it gave me a community where my biggest thing is I didn't want to lead a life group. I'm in the position where it's like everybody on staff also leads a life group.
Yeah.
And I had to take a stance and say, I know I could,
But I refuse.
but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't lead another thing. I need to sit and receive. And I know that sounds selfish, but in order for me to sustain what I'm doing
Yeah.
here, I have to be fed with a community. And so it's actually been really fun. Our life group meets every other week, which is really helpful.
Mhm.
Because then I have one not every week I'm there till a certain time.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
it's an every other week thing. And most of the people that are in this life group, we are all a part of like the tech team or we're all part of the worship team. And so it's really fun. We all have a lot of things in common so that it's really been really beneficial. So that's been good.
Yeah, I'm listening to this book right now that's not Christian at all. It's about thriving as a creative worker, essentially, and how to create more capacity for ideas and creativity by being really intentional and strategic in how you go about your day to day. And not from a Christian perspective at all, but he talked about pruning for like this whole big section of the book. And as people who follow Jesus for a while, we know John 15, we know this is a classic example from Jesus. And I'm embarrassed to say, but like this book literally like gave me an epiphany like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
As I was listening to it, and he was talking about pruning is about getting rid of good things so you can have the best things.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And for some reason, and I know this, but for some reason in my mind, whenever I'm reading that passage, I'm always saying, oh, he's pruning away like the sin and like the things that are holding me back and whatever. But then like immediately, like as I'm listening to this book, flashback to doing a vineyard tour randomly in like Ensenada.
Yeah.
And the guy actually telling us, hey, like the reason we prune is because we could get a ton of grapes.
Yeah.
A ton. But they would be terrible. They would have no flavor. They'd be super bland, super sour. And the reason we have to be so vigilant in pruning these vines all the time is so that we can have the best grapes. We don't just want grapes. We want the best grapes.
Yeah.
We want the real good fruit. And it was just like God speaking to me in that moment, just me like, I want you to bear fruit, but not just any fruit. I want you to have the best, richest, sweetest, most vibrant fruit.
Yeah.
And so when I prune, it's not just like refining you, you know, so that you can bear fruit. It's actually so that I can prune the good things in your life that are keeping you from being great for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
Uh-oh. Oh no. I need to analyze some things now.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, how have I never made this connection before? I felt like simultaneously dumb and inspired.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like God does that to us all the time.
You're like, how have I been
It's like,
reading
how
this
have I
forever
missed that for
and
so
then
long?
missed it. Yeah.
Because coming out of the season, I just told you, it was so profound to me to be like, these are so many good things. And pruning might not look like, you know, just cutting them out altogether.
Right.
But it could look like, how much time am I giving to this? It could look like, what am I hoping to draw from this? Like, what am I trying to do myself to like get as much out of this as possible when I should just be, as you shared, sitting back and receiving.
Yeah.
You know, like what are like the good things that are actually crowding out the best things?
Is that an actual question or is that just your epiphany?
That was my epiphany, but if you have an answer, I'd love to hear it.
No, I think I'm like a workaholic in general. Like I am a like, I don't know, a workhorse is probably a really good way to say it. I get stuck in it's a job. Like, and like the job needs to get done. So I'm going to do the job. I don't get stuck in that, well, it's 4:30, I have to go. Like, I'm not that person at all. I am a, like, listen, I'm not worried about it. It just has to get done. And so that's a mind shift for me as well. But this happened a lot for me at camp too. And I think a lot of camp people are this way because you just work stupid hours. And God doesn't say, hey, go do things for my kingdom and make sure you don't get a break and make sure you just keep going. And like, he doesn't say any of those things. God's literally like, hey, everything you do is in like my name. Do it in my name. Do it for me. But that does not mean that you don't get to have a life.
Yeah.
You know, that means like Jesus rested and Jesus spent time alone and Jesus prayed and Jesus had to eat. Like, and if the Son of God had to do all those things, so do I. So for me, it's how do I assess well in a project or in something that I'm doing and say, there's always more to do. Yeah. It's time to go home. That's and true. Like, how do I do that well? And how do I steward that well? And how do I steward well the people who are giving to the church, who are paying me? You know, is stewarding well could be, I actually need to get rested so that I can come in and do my job better tomorrow. Yeah. Not, I need to be here 15 hours to finish the project.
Yeah. Because more effort doesn't equal more. Like, God doesn't need us to do literally anything. I think that's so hard for us to realize. We're like, oh, if I just put in more effort, more people will be reached. You know, the kingdom will grow more. And yes, like, we're supposed to give God our best and we're supposed to labor for him and not for man and all these things. But I think it's so easy to forget that all these spaces we get invited into to contribute are just a gift from God because he does not need us at all.
Correct.
Like, cannot express that enough.
The gospel will move forward without me.
Yeah. So if you look at it from that perspective, and you really believe that God is doing literally everything and we do nothing without him, then everything we get to be a part of in the local church and beyond is just a gift for him to use us so that we grow and so that we get to be a part of what he's doing in the world. It's not because he needs us. So it's
correct.
So it's so important, like, as you get into those things where, like, you're working all these hours and you're putting in all this effort and it gets to the point where you feel like it depends on you. Yeah. It's so hard to pull yourself out of that, but remembering that it doesn't. Like, this is a gift.
Correct.
Like, this is all just God's grace to us to let us be a part of it. It's just it's just so hard when you're in it.
It's hard when you're in it, and it's hard because you feel like it's dependent on you finishing the job. Yeah. And that could have been communicated to you by your boss. You know? Whether or not it's those specific words or it's the, like, we need this done by this time. And you're like, okay, how do I assess this well? How do I do this well? Especially when it's so out of your control. Because you have, so there's so many factors that fit into that, but it's the, like, how do I take that pressure off myself and say, all right, Lord, like, you're going to move and you're going to work. Help me move and work towards you in this and meet the deadline I need to meet, but not compromise the other things that I shouldn't be compromising. Yeah. Yeah. That's the balance.
To work with excellence and to do your best effort, but realizing at the same time that my efforts truly at the end of the day are nothing compared to what God is going to do. Yeah. Yeah. But it, you know, at the end of the day, like, we're also in a modern church context where if I don't finish that script, the video's not going to get made. Yep. The video's not going to be shown. For you, it's like, if I don't finish this graphic, the bulletin's not going to be printed.
And
the
then
graphics
I have 1,500 people pissed off at me.
So it truly is this balance, but you have to do that zoom out view and say, apart from this series or this project or this thing, is the gospel going to advance? Is the kingdom going to grow? Is the church going to expand? Is it going to be the hope of the world? Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah.
So it's that tension that we hold on to. Yeah. And rather than trying to just, like, drag the plow behind us and do it all, it's just, just put on the yoke. Yeah. Let me
do the
plow.
Yeah.
And you're just along for the ride.
Yeah. That's so hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I've gotten better at it over the years.
Yes.
And that's because burnout is a really real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, having people around you too, like you and I have a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
You texted me after Easter and you're like, are you alive?
Yeah.
And it was just me in my bed.
And her Apple Watch said 0 steps. 0 activity. 0 calories burned.
0 standing hours.
And that was like at 12 p.m.
It's fine.
Something.
I ended that day very well.
Yeah.
But it was like, you know, those types of check-ins, having people that do that in your life help you maintain that, right? It's that level of accountability of, hey, don't forget to like have a life.
Yes. And I think that you just hit on something else that's so critical is as much as we love our churches and love our job, it's critical to have those spaces outside of it.
Yeah. Monday and Tuesday, I hang out with a friend who, I mean, she would come to my church if they did, but it is so good for me to not be around people that I know from church. For 2 days. Yeah. Yeah. It's so good.
It's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's people that can give you that bigger perspective. Mm-hmm. It's people that you can just be off guard.
Yeah.
You know, not having to worry about, you know, sharing how you really feel about something or sharing the hard parts of what you're going through at church. And having those other outlets where you can be creative and build, which is why I've really loved this. Like getting to do this with you
has been so fun.
Huge, a bigger blessing than I think even you know.
Yeah,
just
probably.
Because when I was in that treadmill mindset at times, we would get together and we'd spend a Friday and we'd do something that had nothing to do with church. We're not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Who even knows how big of an impact it's making at this moment in time?
Yeah.
But it was just like, this is just a gift.
And it was so refreshing.
It's just so refreshing to be able to be like, I'm working on something that I'm not actually getting, quote unquote, anything out of right now. Yeah. But I just get to do it because God's invited us into this space and given us this calling. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also helped me grow in my faith because he has stretched us both.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You know, through this. Mm-hmm. I tried to share this with my rooted group and I found out I was devastated that they didn't watch Indiana Jones.
Oh my gosh. They're young.
So it was 1 week I used 2 Indiana Jones analogies, one in youth and one in this discipleship group, and no one in those groups cared or understood. It's like, no one cares about Indiana Jones.
Which is so sad.
But I'm going to share it anyway.
Yeah.
I just love in The Last Crusade, which is the third of the original trilogy, which in my mind is where Indiana Jones ends. Because the other 2 are rough.
Iffy at best.
Iffy at best. And he's going after the Holy Grail and he has to do these tests that the Crusaders put in place that are kind of like tied to the Bible and tied to the Christian faith to some level. And the one that always gets me is he gets to this big chasm where it looks like there's no way across.
Yeah.
And the only clue he has is that it has to do with faith. And so he realizes it's a leap of faith.
Wow.
And he just steps into what looks like the chasm.
Right. And it's like the clear ground, right?
And it's the clear ground. And it's this invisible bridge that actually brings him across this chasm because he had the faith to trust and step out in faith.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys, this is, I've been following Jesus for a while, and this is what I come back to. Faith is just crossing a series of invisible bridges.
Yeah.
Where God takes you beyond the limits of what you think you're capable of or what you can understand and says, trust me.
Yeah.
And that's where we grow. And that's where we really had experienced these big moments of growth in our lives.
Yeah.
And in our relationship with him is when we're willing to step out without any safety net, not knowing what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And just trust that he's calling us into something better and greater. And to not let the good things that we have keep us from experiencing the greatest things.
Yeah. Oh.
Right?
It's good stuff. I would have understood your reference.
You do, because you also love
I've seen it. Yeah.
If anyone's listening and has not watched that scene, it's toward the very end of the movie, but I just think you should watch Last Crusade because it's a great movie.
It's a good movie.
A little gory at the end, but you'll survive.
Yeah, today's standards, it's not that bad.
Today's standard, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just what I've experienced.
Yeah.
in my walk with God. And even in that season where I realized I did not have it in me to do any of those things, it was again another moment of, but God can.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep showing up to these spaces and trusting that God's going to take over. And sure enough, like, I've had some of the most powerful life group conversations I've ever had in my personal life group, which was something I normally would have taken a break from when I have other things going on. Our youth ministry at the satellite campus I attend is growing in incredible ways.
That's awesome.
And girls are taking these big steps in faith. And we're experiencing a greater depth of spirituality where we're literally on Easter Sunday walking around at 6:30 a.m. with a dozen high school kids who showed up at that time to pray over the mall where our church meets.
That's so cool.
And really prayed with authority over spaces and said, Jesus, this is your space. Anything that's not of you, get out of here.
Yeah.
And literally these girls and these high school boys are walking around with it. Junior high kids came.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we're praying at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, that's not normal.
No.
That's not normal. It's so amazing. And then even getting to baptize so many women from that discipleship group and seeing them around church still growing and learning.
Yeah.
And the only reason any of that is happening is not me.
No, God's moving.
It's God.
Right?
It's all God.
Yeah.
Where have you seen God showing up even in the busy?
Yeah, I think these invisible bridges are insane, right? I think the most clear for me is when I graduated from college and started working at camp and just... and I think I've talked about it before, but just yelling at God and being like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to put you exactly where I need you. And it was that, like, not where you want to be, not where you should be, but exactly where I need you. And no joke, 2 weeks later, I was hired at the camp. And so it's just the, like, God, I'm not seeing the unfolded plan and then walking in those steps. It's the, okay, Lord, what's next? And I think doing what we're doing now, I've seen the biggest leaps of faith for me. In the, okay, God, what's next? Okay, God, what's next? And, you know, you've been with me this whole time, and you were always like, whenever you're ready to go, I'm ready to go. and I bring that up a lot because it meant a lot to me at that time. And I think at that time I was like, it may never happen, Katie.
I always knew it would.
And then one day I was like, it's happening, Katie. And so though it's been good, and you saw me break down for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks back.
A couple months ago. And it's just I think for me, it's the, Lord, how do I not get too comfortable in this life? Because you always have things to do, and you're moving, and I want to be a part of it. And so at my church, you know, we got a new pastor, and we doubled overnight, probably quadrupled overnight.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm still one person in my job. So for me, it's like, okay, Lord, my workload has exponentially gotten bigger. Help.
Yeah.
And just seeing him provide people and provide time and provide wisdom and you know, like, we met with somebody today who I think the Lord provided as just the, like, you get to invest in this person and it's going to be so beneficial.
Yeah.
And it's truly been a breath of fresh air in my job. It's still my job, but it's like this, oh, this is why I do it, what I do, you know, to see young people treasuring the Lord more and more and more and wanting to get involved and asking hard questions and those types of things. And so those spaces for me have been, in the last 6 months, the most rewarding and really cool to see. And I never would have seen that a year ago, you know, with where we were at, you know. So it's clinging to those moments, I think, for me, of like, okay, God is moving and God is working. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. You just need to look up.
Yeah.
We get so locked in looking down at our own tasks and all the things we have. And God's putting all these people around us.
Right. And it's hard because we worked at camp and you see immediate results.
Mm-hmm.
You see heightened emotions resulting in a lot of things. And so it makes the moving forward through the muck so much easier when you see the outcome so quickly. Where like in local church ministry, the outcome sometimes takes 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm so tired of watering the same plant. Will it ever grow? And the Lord's like, it's not for you to decide when it grows. I will make that decision.
So good.
You know, like, but keep watering because that's what I've called you to do. Keep planting seeds because that's what I've called you to do. And if I can go, okay, Lord, my job isn't to make the plant grow. My job is to show up and do what you've asked me to do. So I will plant seeds and I will water them. And whatever you get to do, to you, I'll be the glory. And so keep me the Lord has done so good of humbling me and keeping me out of it. And that's probably what I've needed the most of. It's not about me, it's about God. And if I can have that mindset, it helps me a ton. Yeah.
So good. Yeah. Well, thank you for participating in this round table discussion, round camera, I guess, discussion. I just hope it's so evident that Hannah and I both love what we're able to be a part of, and that even though in some days we feel like the church is our entire life, we know that the real truth is that Jesus is, and that apart from anything that we accomplish in the local church, whether volunteer or professionally, it's all about Jesus, and he's the one who gets all the glory, and he does it all anyway. We just get to participate with him as a gift because he loves us. Yep. So good. Yay.
Yay. If you are somebody who works in the church or works for a parachurch organization, just know that you are so seen for everything that you do, so known by the things that you've accomplished with your hands, with your mind, with your skills, and so loved. Maybe not necessarily by the people you do it for, but by the one who created you to do it. So would you be encouraged that God is moving and God is working even when it doesn't feel like he is? You are seen, known, and loved by us. We love you. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening to the You Are Completely Loved podcast. I am Hannah.
I am Katie.
May you always remember that you are seen, known, and loved.